Good morning. It is day 170, God and me. Today we're going to read from Streams in the Desert, and it talks about giving God back the keys. Great little story. And basically it's saying that God's in control, even through all the changes in the weather and everything else. Today's scripture is from Psalm 103, verse 19. The Lord has made the heavens his throne. From there, he rules over everything there is. Some time ago, as I went out my door in the early spring, a blast of easterly wind rounded the corner. It seemed defiant and merciless, and was fierce and dry, raising a cloud of dust ahead of it. As I removed the key from the door, I quite impatiently began to say, "I wish the wind would." What I was about to say was change, but my thought was stopped, and the sentence was never finished. As I continued on my way, the incident became a parable for me. I imagined an angel handing me a key and saying, "My master sends you his love and asks me to give you this." Wondering, I asked, "What is it?" "It is the key to the winds," the angel said, and then disappeared. My first thought was, this indeed will bring me happiness. So I hurried high into the hills to the source of the winds and stood amid the caves. I proclaimed, "I will do away with the terrible east wind. It will never plague us again." I summoned that unfriendly wind to me, closed the door behind it, and heard it echoing through the hollow caves. As I turned the key, triumphantly locking it in, I said, "There, I am finished with that." Then, looking around me, I asked myself, what should I put in its place? I thought of the warm southerly wind and how pleasant it must be on newborn lambs, and new flowers and plants of all kinds. But as I put the key in the door, it began to burn my hand. I cried aloud, "What am I doing? Who knows what damage I may cause? How do I know what the fields want and need? 10,000 problems may result from this foolish wish of mine to control the weather." Bewildered and ashamed, I looked up and asked the Lord to send his angel to take away the key. Then I promised I would never ask for it again. To my amazement, the Lord himself came and stood by me. He stretched out his hand to take the key, and as I placed it there, I saw it touch that sacred scar. I was filled with remorse as I wondered how I could ever have complained about anything done by him who bore such sacred signs of his love. Then he took the key and hung it on his belt. I asked, "Do you keep the key to the winds?" "I do, my child," he graciously answered. And as he spoke, I noticed that all the keys to my life were hanging there as well. He saw my look of amazement and asked, "Did you not know, dear child, that my kingdom rules over all?" "If you rule over all," I questioned, "is it safe to complain about anything?" Then he tenderly laid his hand upon me to say, "My dear child, your only safety comes from loving, trusting, and praising me through everything." Streams in the Desert, day 170, in these waterlogged West Virginia mountains. After a long years of drought, is it safe for us to question or complain about anything? It sure is beautiful over here at Miss Elizabeth's today. There's a ton of frogs jumping. And look at these pretty orange flowers over here. I don't know what they are. I'm gonna have to find out. There's so much rain at the piers. It's almost up to the pier. Well, it is up to the pier. Well, definitely changing. Look at the dragonflies. Woo! That bird. It's always gorgeous over here. So we're going to talk a little bit about change. We've read what Marcus has to say, and then we've read from Streams in the Desert and how it's inevitable and how God is in control of it. However rapid it might be right now, because we're certainly in a rapidly changing time, and I've spoken on it before. Change is something I don't really particularly like, but it's something that's been forced on me for, I don't know, about 15 years now. I guess when I was younger, it wasn't as hard or difficult. You get to a certain age and you'd like some kind of stability in your life, whether it be financial or relationships or something. But it would seem that that's not possible in a lifetime, no matter what. No matter how hard you try to, plan for security, as the world says. There is no real security down here. So these are really great readings, especially if you're like me and struggle with that. A lot has happened to me in a lot of years, and I'm sure I just spoke with the lady at the Dollar General, and she was echoing the same thing. Spoke with many people who are just experiencing extreme amounts of traumatic change. And just, you hear someone else's story, it takes you out of yours. Not that you're comparing, but it makes you realize that yours was meant for you and theirs was meant for them, because certainly what they're experiencing you wouldn't want to experience. It makes you kind of content with your own struggles. So, since we're talking about change today, I'm going to go read these readings out here on my walk, because, well, the porch is wet, and I thought it would be neat to kind of change things up. And maybe we just need to do that more on our own. Just change things on our own. And then we'll get more used to it. Maybe because it's more in our control. I don't know. I was speaking with my daughter months ago, and she said something about her dad, my ex-husband. She said, I always admired him. I admire Dad because he's always been able to change. And that really resonated with me because, it was just a beautiful sentiment about her father and his ability to make changes in his life. Unfortunately, we changed too far apart, but that's just how it goes down here. So, it's a beautiful day. Get out there and enjoy this changing weather. It looks like there's blue skies today, and I don't know if it's supposed to rain again, but we do have blue peeking through. So every day, even the weather's different. And that's basically nature at work. There's not much you can do about that, unless you're a power that be, controlling the weather. And even then, I think man's attempts to control the weather are feeble, because certainly Mama's way more powerful than anything they can try to implement. And I think that's also a reason why we're seeing a lot of climate chaos. It's because man should never interfere with nature. Man's interference with nature is creating a lot of the problems we're seeing in the world today, because there is such a thing as natural law. And for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Anyway, get out there and enjoy your blue skies days. in your walk and do something different today. Change it up. Yesterday, my day really changed up from what I had planned in my mind in the morning. And it turned into a really great, fun day, but it was one of those instances where society, with changing towards computers and away from brick and mortar stores where you can have face-to-face conversations and orderings. Well, I had to go help a friend order things because it all had to be done on Excel, which even I'm not that familiar with Excel with a college degree because I never really had to use Excel. You want a PowerPoint presentation, I could do that. But it made me think of that movie, No Country for Old Men, because the older generation, it's difficult for them. They were used to face-to-face communication and filling out something, an order form by hand, even just faxing off an order, a handwritten order form. And now everything's being done digitally. And so how long will that last with nature the way it is? And then we'll have a generation of people that don't know how to fill anything out by hand, or perhaps don't even remember the old ways. And we're seeing this rise in AI. And, the more you get computers involved, the less people are using their actual brain, because our brain is way more powerful than a computer. I've read that before. And so you have this system right now, and everyone's got to participate in it if you want to, leave the wilderness, so to speak, and go out into the world and try to make a living and all. And it's not, not always a positive thing. So we don't know when God will step in and intervene on that, even, or nature itself, because certainly one good EMP or a solar flare can knock all of this computer technology out, and then we'll be like, living back in the dark ages with people that have no fine motor skills to write in cursive or fill out or make an order form. So it's just an example of change, and although, we are kind of going with it with this beast system, because, I'm sorry, things like this are from the beast. They're not from God. God would not keep doing all of this kind of chaotic change. I don't believe that. He's a loving God. So I don't think that he would make older people feel disenfranchised. I think he would value all human life. So this is definitely coming from an alternate system, because there's two systems at work here. And people can say what they want, but some changes are not from God. And although this reading is dealing with the wind and nature, well, that doesn't have anything really to do with the computers and the rapidly changing warfare techniques, i.e. drones. None of that is from God. That is from man and his wicked desires to take the keys. So, what can you say these days? Times they are changing. Times they are changing. Into the wilderness you flee. And to just finish that kind of talk off, there's been civilizations before that got so technologically advanced they were destroyed, because I'm sure God looked down and said, no, not on my watch. So I believe a lot of our technology right now is from the fallen ones, and is not for humanity's great benefit. And although it's advancing, it will be used as it's being used now to promote the gospel, but ultimately, I don't think God's going to deal with the Tower of Babel once again. And so, change, change, change. You know, it will be here for so long, and then it will be gone. Probably we'll be back to being primitive people. Because I think a lot of our history has been hidden from us for a very long time. You can't get a population of people to be slaves, so to speak, without deception, manipulation, and lies. And God created us to be free beings and not to be wage slaves and slaves to a system that is very utterly corrupt at its core. It's based on who can be the most corrupt, basically. Who can step on who to get ahead. How is that a loving, kind system that God would create? It cannot be. Therefore, it can only come from the beast. And, you know, however you have to form that in your mind, how all that works. To me, I just get it. We're in a fallen world. And I'm going to do my part and hopefully fly out of here. And, you know, try to be as kind as I can and try to do what good I can and enjoy what time I have left. So, through this changing time, because it's certainly stretching my endurance, my patience, and I would say my faith, because it's making me feel closer to the Lord and those things that are not of this world, but of the heavenly kingdom. That's what it's done for me. It's made me focus more on heaven on earth. To me, nature is heaven on earth. And as we watch it be destroyed, whether it be through solar panel fields or windmills or what have you, it hurts your heart for someone that finds their little piece of heaven out in nature. Hurts your heart. I can only imagine how the Aboriginal people felt as they watched all this. I can only imagine. That's why my heart always has felt very native-like. Like there's something wrong down here. Even when I was enjoying it, I never really felt a part of it. So yeah, we're in a time of change. Got off track there. Maybe you can reflect too on how your life's changed rapidly. And know that you're not alone, because I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of us feel very alone out here. We're just walking our dogs in the woods or sitting alone because we're having a hard time relating to the world we're watching change. Anyway, that's about it. I think I digressed a little bit on that, but rambled a little bit on. I'm good for that. Oh wow, I just heard a tree fall way over in the woods. Makes me think of that saying, if no one's in the woods to hear a tree, does it make a sound? Well, I'm not in that woods over there, but it's way over there. A big tree just fell. Wyatt, you ready to head home? Back over through the Riverlog Trail, through the woods? No. You like hearing the frogs too much? Oh, I've been a complainer. I'm such a complainer. My last husband bought me a journal titled The Perpetual Disappointments. Yes, I've had a lot of disappointments. But, you know, you read something like that, and it puts your life into perspective. I think a lot of our problems is from wanting our own way. And, you know, it's a human condition. So, yeah. perpetual disappointments, whether it's weather, relationships in your life. There are things that are very disappointing, changes that we may not like, but I guess we just have to trust that the Lord has all the keys to our life on his belt, and he knows what he's doing. So, Wyatt, what do you think? What do you think? Huh? Say hi to everybody. He doesn't care. He's on a new interesting walk today. He was happy for the change. Were you happy for the change today? Yeah, he's happy for the change. He's content with the change, aren't you? He says, rub my belly. Rub my belly. Rub my belly. We're on a different walk today. I like this change. I like this change. Funny thing about that journal of perpetual disappointments is that often in our lives we can have very hard seasons, just like Job. And we may sound like Job. And if another person doesn't want to feel those seasons in their own life, then they can project the fact that you're struggling onto you. Because I often look back and I think that's what was occurring, because certainly he had a lot of perpetual disappointments too, and series of unfortunate events, so to speak. And as a therapist once told me, I would probably experience a lot of transference or projection as a therapist. And that has certainly happened, not as a therapist, but just in friendships, relationships, casual encounters, a lot of projection and transference. Because we all have seasons of perpetual disappointments, if not several occurring at once. And I won't go into why my season was a fairly long one. Some of us are warriors down here, and we're given a lot of missions of opening up gates. A lot of missions to open up people's gates so they can experience the flood of God's teachings. So yeah, but I think if you're going to live a life, you're going to have perpetual disappointments, and that's just how it is. And I know scripture says that you should have joy in all trials and all that, but I don't think that that's exactly true either. I mean, you don't want to be laughing at a funeral or, oh, I'm happy that two 23-year-olds died in a car wreck drinking and driving. I don't think that's appropriate emotional responses, regardless of what scripture says. There's an appropriate way to act. And, seasons of our lives where we're struggling, just like Job. Because sometimes the devil is really after some of us because of the light bearers that we are. So, anyway, it's a great new, different walk today. Just reflecting on that. So don't ever be made to feel guilty if you're having a bad time. Just know when you need to go seek help, or, you need to pull yourself out of the funk. Some of us need to pull ourselves out of the funk. We got to go to God. We can't always depend on the people around us to pull us out of a funk, because more than likely they're in a funk, even if they don't know it. Peace be with y'all.